Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Lainey Lambrank. A number of juvenile Chinook salmon could be getting hurt or killed while swimming through the Whitehorse Dam. A new study estimates the fish could be getting killed at a rate of up to 34%. That study was obtained through an access to information request. Julian Janak has this story.
The dam has 4 powerful turbines. The study suggests those could be dealing the salmon deadly blows. At a time when numbers of Chinook have for years plummeted, that matters a lot, especially when you consider the little research on young salmon migrating to the Bering Sea. That's how the chief of the Kwanlin First Nation feels. Sean Smith says the study also helps reckon with the legacy of colonization.
Recognition is what sort of things can we address as to historical impacts to our people and the impacts to the river itself, but to all the other things within our territory that survive off the salmon.
The 3 local First Nations spurred the study. Mariah Benoit is the Haw-Shaw Deheni of the Carcross-Tagish First Nation. She says she's done with talking. Benoit wants action.
We don't get salmon at all here on this side of the dam, so we haven't caught salmon over here for many years, so our people have to buy salmon and we have it shipped into us yearly. So even this year we didn't even get salmon, so yeah, it's not good.
Yukon Energy paid for the study. The study is linked to company efforts to renew its water license, which soon expires. Executive Michael Muller says the study helps zero in on problems.
What our focus is on is trying to understand how those fish end up in the turbines, whether we can redirect them to the spillway. And our focus is really on developing some understanding and mitigation to avoid that happening going forward.
To shepherd them away, the study suggests things like screens of bubbles or lights, otherwise installing more fish-friendly turbines proven to increase survival rates. Yukon Energy says it's too early to say what could change. More research planned for next summer could clarify that. Julian Janak, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A former Whitehorse Anglican priest will serve 3 years in prison for molesting 2 young First Nation boys, Yukon First Nation boys, in the 80s. David Norton was sentenced in a Yukon territorial court today. Reporter Jackie Hong has more. A warning, the story contains discussions about sexual abuse.
Judge Michael Cousins gave Norton 3 years each for the abuse of each Yukon boy. Those terms will be served concurrently, but they'll be consecutive to Norton's other sentences. He's already serving 13 years for sexually abusing boys in other parts of the country. Norton was found guilty of the Yukon charges earlier this year after a 2-day trial. The victims testified to sleeping on the same mattress or in the same bed as Norton. They woke up on separate occasions to the priest inappropriately touching them or touching himself. In a sentencing decision, Cousins strongly condemned Norton's crimes. He said the priest used his position of power and trust to take advantage of 2 vulnerable boys. Norton was the church's Indian Ministries coordinator in the territory at the time. He worked at both the Old Lock Church in Whitehorse and at the Anglican Church in Carcross. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A newly elected city councillor in Iqaluit has resigned. Veteran politician Jack Anarhuac stepped down less than a week after being sworn in. Anarhuac confirmed his resignation to CBC News, but did not say why. The former MP and Nunavut cabinet minister was elected to city council on October 23rd. He had the fewest votes of the 8 elected councillors. Elections Nunavut says Iqaluit's new city council is responsible for appointing someone else to fill the spot. 6 other candidates for Iqaluit council did not win a seat in last month's election. Louis Faulkner McKay was the first runner-up. He finished 110 votes behind Anarhuac. In all 3 territories, people turned out on the weekend to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The protests mirrored marches happening in cities all over the world. This was the scene in Whitehorse, Yellowknife, Iqaluit. The rallies came just days after two Northern MPs made similar calls. Nunavut's MP Lori Idlout and NWT MP Michael McLeod added their names to letters calling for an immediate ceasefire.
I'm just a mom that cares about children and people in the world, and I didn't see anything happening, and I know a lot of people are afraid right now to speak out against what's happening in Palestine and Gaza and the West Bank, and I just don't care. Like, I'll speak out.
Lane says she wanted to show the Palestinian community in Nunavut they're not alone. As of today, fighting in Gaza has been going on for 1 month. It's now the deadliest in the history of Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. The heaviest bombardments of the Israeli campaign came overnight. Gaza's health ministry says more than 10,000 people in the territory have been killed in the fighting. Israel's military says it has cut the Gaza Strip in half and says its forces have surrounded the heart of the Hamas military wing in Gaza City. Ground troops are expected to be in the city center within 2 days. The Prime Minister is coming under more pressure to extend carbon tax exemptions. That's after his government's decision to exempt heating oil. Now, that doesn't apply to areas that have their own carbon tax rules like the NWT, but it's expected to help many people in Atlantic Canada. And premiers in other provinces say it isn't fair. Ashley Burke has more on their unanimous call for action and a vote on the issue in the House of Commons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Conservatives leader wants to axe the carbon tax on all forms of home heating.
Will the members for Thunder Bay be given a free vote on our motion to take the tax off and keep the heat on?
Veuillez bien se lever.
Today, he put it to a vote. In a rare move, the government's key partner, the NDP, gave its support.
I'm always very uncomfortable in any moment where I'm seen in any way voting alongside the Conservatives.
The NDP's leader says the Conservatives don't have a climate plan, but he had to reject the Liberals' approach.
With our ministers.
More than a week ago, the Prime Minister announced an exemption on home heating oil from the carbon tax for 3 years, a move that will help many in Atlantic Canada, where the Liberals are flailing in the polls.
It was really divisive to say one region gets help because they voted Liberals and other regions don't because they didn't vote Liberal. I mean, we've got to reject that.
The Bloc Québécois didn't reject that, and the vote didn't pass.
Justin Trudeau has set us up for the carbon tax election.
More pressure at a time when premiers are speaking out too.
If they're going to give the Atlantic provinces a break, they need to give everyone a break across the country.
During a meeting in Halifax, premiers said they were united in calling for the federal carbon tax to be fair.
The carbon tax is not a silver bullet when it comes to climate change.
All this is doing is just causing unfairness.
Extend this carbon tax pause to home heating oil, but also extend it to other forms of electricity.
The government insists it's not picking favorites.
I don't share that view that we're playing unfairly in terms of regional representation.
The Prime Minister has said no to any more carve-outs, but tomorrow senators are voting on a critical private member's bill. It proposes exempting farmers from the carbon tax to dry their grain. If the Senate votes in favor, it would then go to the House for approval. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's motion to exempt all home heating from carbon tax was defeated in a vote today.
Yeas pour 135, 135. Nays contre 186, 186.
The vote tally was 135 yeas and 186 nays. Most of the New Democrats voted with Conservatives to support the non-binding motion, but Bloc Québécois and Green MPs sided with the Liberals to strike it down. Nunavut's minimum wage will grow by $3 in the new year. It'll go from $16 an hour to $19 as of January 1st, which would make it the highest minimum wage in Canada. The territory's Justice Minister says his department reviewed the going rate last summer. The change was made based on feedback they received.
A lot of the business community did comment back saying that they're already within that range anyways, so that helped us make the decision a lot easier.
Nunavut's minimum wage hasn't gone up since 2020. The NWT's minimum wage is $16.05 right now, while Yukon's is $16.77 an hour.
November 11th, the most unforgettable day of the year. A message from the Government of Canada.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, host of a new podcast, Crime Story. Every week, we bring you a different crime, told by the storyteller who knows it best. All the ins and outs.
It was a story of murder, of exploitation of a schoolgirl.
You got one witness who can't be found. You got another witness who has changed his entire story.
I remember just this feeling of like complete disbelief.
Crime Story, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Territory is choosing its next government, and CBC has everything you need to know before you cast your ballot. Get the stories and promises that shape the campaign on television, radio, and digital. NWT votes on CBC.
Canadians of generations have been miseducated.
But we don't talk about that. We are here. We have been here.
These stories are us.
Yeah, dog!
Oh, an absolute classic.
All right! Let's go! Yeah!
This is The National.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
Snow is coming down, wildfire season is behind us, but that doesn't necessarily mean the land has stopped burning. We know fire can persist deep in the ground, even as temperatures plummet. Mike Westwick is a wildfire information officer with the NWT government. I spoke to him about overwintering fires, sometimes also called zombie fires or hibernating fires. Here's part of our conversation.
So how come fires are in some cases able to survive the winter conditions like this that we're seeing around us?
Yeah, what we see is fires burning kind of deep into the ground. They're able to hold on to that heat under there and kind of keep active to a degree below the ground, though we don't typically see much growth in those fires. It's just heat trapped under there, continuing to burn away at fuel deep in the soil there.
Is it something that would be at all visible from the surface to somebody out on the land?
You know, we've actually received some reports from researchers out there that there are some areas on Clichon lands there that they've been seeing some kind of steam rising. That's not always the case, but it is sometimes the case, and it's something for land users to be aware of for sure. You know, tracking these overwintering fires, it's always a priority early in the next fire season, so it's always good for us to get reports to our regional offices from folks who are using the land if they're seeing stuff like that, because it's something that can contribute to our monitoring and contribute to our planning for the following season and contribute to our detection in the following season as well.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about how the Territory does the monitoring of fires that are overwintering?
Yeah, I mean, so primarily it has to do with reports from people on the land, observances from folks who work with us who are out patrolling and the like on the land, and also, of course, we're able to use where it's necessary satellite detection. You know, when it's burning that deep underground, often it doesn't generate generate satellite signatures. But, again, it's about observances. And also it comes down to, when you're getting into the next season, which areas burned last year. And those are always, high priority areas for early season detection as the snow starts to melt away and the temperatures start to rise, especially when we see a season where so much area was subject to such intense burning this season.
The NWT had an unprecedented wildfire year. How might that affect overwintering fires?
Yeah, well, certainly when more land is burned, there's more opportunity to be those fires that are, continuing to be a little bit active over winter. An example of this in 2014, where we kind of had our next biggest fire season in terms of area burned, we saw about 7 fires that we would categorize as holdover fires or overwintering fires at the beginning of during the 2015 season that were found to be related to overwinter burning. So, certainly that's something we're going to be keeping an eye on when the snow starts to melt away at the end of the winter, which is obviously very welcome for folks right now after facing that unprecedented season.
The concept of overwintering fires is quite an interesting one. We don't think often maybe of fires burning through winter conditions. Sometimes they're called zombie fires. What else do you want people to know about these kinds of overwintering fires?
Yeah, so first, the term zombie fire we don't love because it implies that it's like a really negative force in the environment and maybe something abnormal. Overwintering fires are not a new phenomenon. They are certainly part of what you would experience in the boreal forest. They're nothing to be scared of per se. They are something to be aware of. And something else that I would just note for this overwinter period for everyone using the land is that there was a lot of root systems that were kind of compromised during this season, and that leads to more trees that are more likely to be kind of at risk of falling over. So please be aware when you're out on the land. It's best to keep 2 tree lengths away if you can from trees that might be dangerous. Be especially aware when you're in areas that to have burned during the year. Just stay safe out there. It's the landscape has changed beyond what people may have been used to in the past. So stay aware out there.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
A wild muskox was spotted recently in Fort Chipewyan in Alberta. That's rare. Musk oxen are usually found in the north. It's unclear why the animal was that far south. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak has the details of the encounter and what one researcher is saying about it.
Check this dude out. Muskox.
Last week, Darlene Cardinal slammed on her brakes to avoid hitting a wild muskox. At first, she thought it was a buffalo. She started filming it and then posted it on Facebook, where it got a big reaction.
It's odd to see, but yeah, there he is.
Cardinal says after posting her video, everyone in her comments told her the animal was a muskox.
I was like, look at this big creature. Look at this dude. I said, he's up here. And I thought it was a buffalo, like I said, and I kept saying, look, we have buffalo in our area. And then when I posted it, everybody was like, that's not a buffalo, Dar. That is a muskox. And I was like, even more weird. So even more rare, So it was quite interesting. And everybody appreciated the video for sure.
Cardinal says she was shocked to realize it was a muskox and felt honored to have seen it. The muskox did cause some controversy in Fort Chipewyan. Community members say that the muskox was shot and killed, and its meat was used as food. Some say the animal should have been left alone. Alice Rigney is a Fort Chipewyan elder and says it was okay to hunt the muskox as food is so expensive in Fort Chipewyan.
For it to be shot for food, it's food. When you live in a isolated community where our food cost is so high, it provides food for a few families.
Susan Coots is a researcher who has been studying musk oxen and caribou for the past 30 years. She says it's unclear why they are traveling so far down south, but as they do, they are at risk of contracting diseases and bringing them back up north.
Really important as far as musk oxen being exposed to new diseases like brucellosis from bison, tuberculosis from bison, anthrax, which is found in the Wood Buffalo National Park.
Coote says wildfires and climate change could potentially explain the displacement of musk oxen, but more research needs to be done to determine the exact cause. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The Nunavut Employees Union is holding its 9th annual convention at the Askarnit Hotel in Iqaluit this week. Delegates from many of Nunavut's communities will be there. It's an opportunity for them to meet each other and talk about what direction the union should go over the next 3 years. They'll be discussing support for healthcare workers, which would include working with the territorial government. They've got some financial matters to talk about too.
So we have elected delegates and elected executive that have flown in, and some people actually live here in this community, but they fly in and then we shape the next 3 years going forward for the next term. And they also elect a new executive, and we have some resolutions that we need to vote on and a budget.
Rochon says the union's priorities include training, mobilization, and strong collective agreements. Yellowknife's city manager will be stepping down soon. Sheila Bassey-Kellett has been in the city's top job for almost 7 years. She'll be leaving the role in March. Bassey-Kellett announced her departure to city staff on Friday. She was city manager through some big crises, the COVID-19 pandemic and this summer's wildfires. She also saw controversy during last year's municipal strike. In an interview with CBC on Friday, she says she's stepping down because of personal reasons.
It's been such an honor to be able to serve my community, but it's time, there's so many things that I want to do that I just don't really have time to do given the demands of my position as city manager. It's the days are long, and you're always on when you're in this role. And
it will be up to City Council to hire Bassey-Kellett's successor. She says as far as she knows, they've not started that process yet. One of the North's most well-known criminal lawyers is walking away from the courthouse. Peter Hart has been a lawyer for 35 years in Ontario, Nunavut, and the NWT. He's long been an advocate for restorative justice and healing in the justice system. Hart retired this year. This morning, he sat down with the CBC's Hilary Bird to reflect on what all those years have meant to him and what's next.
With a career this long, what sort of marks did these cases leave on you?
I don't know the answer to that question, Hillary. I'm still in the process of finding that out. We read about indirect trauma or vicarious trauma all the time. And I sit down at times and talk with police officers I know and colleagues, and we're not sure yet what kind of an impact it makes. We can see in ourselves sometimes symptoms of trauma, which include kind of getting, I'm not sure if angry is the right word, but having a strong emotional response to something that is maybe beyond what it requires or deserves. But it's really tough when you're experiencing trauma, the after effects. It's really tough to know exactly what it's done to you. And unfortunately, that's one of the ironies in terms of dealing with what goes on in court. People don't realize they're victims of trauma. So I hope to find out what it's done to me, but I don't know yet.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of work in unpacking that. And being a lawyer is such a big part of your identity, especially if you've done it for more than 3 decades. Now that you've been retired for a couple of months, you've retired at the end of June, do you wrestle with that at all about finding out who you are now?
Absolutely. And that was one of the questions or issues I was worried about in retiring. And happily, just the other day, I got a very helpful answer from a friend of mine who said, well, no, you're not a lawyer. You're somebody who likes to help people who went to law school, which I found a very helpful and comforting comment.
So there's still work for you to do.
Yes, that's true.
Let's talk about that. What are your plans in retirement?
I hope to be able to do some volunteer work, and I've been lined up to take tickets at NAC. There's a whole bunch of things that go on locally and The outreach van is something I'd like to try and experiment with. I've had lots of experiences with people on the street, helping them get to court, those sorts of things. And I'm hoping to be able to do that to a greater extent now that I don't actually have to be in court. And I can simply be a helper, and I don't have to worry about meeting a 9:30 deadline.
The end of Peter Hart's career and the end of Northbeat for tonight, almost. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a look at tomorrow's weather. Thanks for watching. I'm Leanie Lambrink. Have a good night.
Your vote, your way. Click, stream, watch, listen. Get the facts before you head to the polls. NWT votes on CBC.
You're not a millennial.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dre's not a doctor. I feel like such an imposter.
You need money to survive.
He had something to hide.
Try typing with your thumbs.
What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry.
Huh. We call them crackberries.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
2 attacks in a week.
Go on.
Everybody's got something to hide.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes.
Your family can't take much more.
Think you're a better driver when you're high? Think again. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims. A message from Mad Canada.
What Canadian animal is bigger than a school bus? Eats tiny critters but doesn't have any teeth. Likes to swim in cold ocean waters in the summer. And feeds milk to its baby calf. If you guessed the right whale, you're correct. These giant whales live in busy parts of the ocean, so people need to be careful when driving boats near them. To learn more about the North Atlantic right whale, visit our website at hww.ca.
I'm Gagwege. My name means everything.
Tom Longboats.
I am Wolf Clan, Onondaga Nation. I've run many different races. I've run to survive and to be free. I've run to win for honor.
His people might be lazy, but this one's damn fast.
My people respected our runners, people who carried important messages from village to village.
I need a guide to the next post. Dispatch carrier, sir. I can get you there.
God's sakes, man, slow down. Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat?
No, sir. I am.
Running makes me feel alive. It's everything.
Tom Longboat was the first Indigenous person to win the Boston Marathon. He ran his way to international fame and became an inspiration to generations of athletes.
I
I understand that you're struggling emotionally.
Sure you want to do this?
I mean, it's research, right? You need to stop asking me for things I can't give you. You've done it my whole life.
I was homeschooled as a child. You can only be as smart as your mom. That's it.
Gross.
Okay, cool.
I love it.
I understand that you're struggling emotionally.
Sure you want to do this?
I mean, it's research.